Hello, my name is Leo.
And I'm Dharti, and today we're going to be presenting on the advertising of alcohol and tobacco. Advertising is a great way to expose the public to different types of products and ideas. Alcohol and tobacco are two products in particular that have had a long history connected to its advertising. Looking back at the 1900s, here in this picture we can see the different types of advertisements that were commonly circulating across various different medias. Here is a look at how the advertisements try to market tobacco and alcohol now. It was actually difficult to find recent ads for tobacco, although alcohol ads were more prevalent. Specifically, alcohol ads are more common in the context of tailgates and football, as shown in the picture above. For example, the Super Bowl is perhaps one of the greatest ways to advertise and reach a large audience. The difficulty in finding recent tobacco ads shows that the popularity in their advertisement has gone down. We see coupons and pairing of tobacco with free gifts, but not as much explicit advertising as in the 1900s. So overall, when comparing the history and types of advertisements from the 1900s and now, we see a shift in the types of advertisements. In the 1900s, big themes in the ads include doctors recommending smoking, the idea of everybody smoking, the idea that smoking is good for your health and that it makes you feel your best, the lack of mention of the negative effects and health risks, and the fact that it keeps you skinny by using sex appeal. Now, the advertisements have less direct promotion of tobacco and there's no longer advertisements saying that it is good for you, as warning labels are becoming increasingly more popular. The ads that are common include featuring a free product with purchase or coupons. The overall trend in ads shows that there is a shift in the emphasis from smoking being more of a glamorized, popular, and safe behavior to one that has known risks and isn't less endorsed. Regardless, biases are still present.
So, what are the harmful effects of alcohol? According to the 2015 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, or NSDUH, 86.4% of people ages 18 or older reported they drank alcohol at some point in their lifetime. 70% reported they drank in the past year, and 56% reported they drank in the past month. An estimate of 88,000 people, approximately 62,000 men and 26,000 women die from alcohol-related causes annually, making alcohol the fourth leading preventable cause of death in the U.S. In 2014, alcohol-impaired driving fatalities account for almost 10,000 deaths, which is 31% of overall driving fatalities. According to the 2015 NSDUH, 15.1 million adult ages 18 or older, 6.2% of this age group has AUD, which is alcohol usage disorder. This includes 9.8 million men and 5.3 million women. According to the 2015 NSDUH, an estimate of 600 to 23,000 adolescents ages from 12 to 17 had AUD. This number includes 298,000 males and 525,000 females. As an economic burden, in 2010, alcohol misuse cost the United States $249 billion. How about tobacco use? Cigarette smoking causes then 480,000 deaths each year in the U.S. This is nearly 1 in 5 deaths. Smoking causes about 90% of lung cancer deaths. More women die from lung cancer each year than from breast cancer. Smoking also causes about 80% of all deaths from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. In 2011, an estimate of 19% of the U.S. adults were cigarette smokers. Approximately 18% of high school students smoked cigarettes. From 1964 and 2014, the proportion of adult smokers declined from 42 to 18%, which is a good sign. So the question is, does alcohol advertising increase the overall levels of alcohol consumption? Does it predispose children and adolescents to drinking? In general, studies based on economic analysis suggest that advertising does not increase the overall consumption, but instead may encourage people to switch beverage brands or types. As shown in the right graph, the cost of alcohol advertising increased exponentially over the years. However, the U.S. alcohol consumption per capita does not really show an increase. Thus, we can come to a conclusion that alcohol advertising does not correlate with the consumption. However, as indicated in the study, the limitation of the research methods that have been used hinder the ability to draw firm conclusions about the cause and effects.
Alcohol and drug addiction is characterized by a decrease in planning and goal-directed behavior, while habits, fears, and the likes and wants increase. As such, there is reduced input from the orbital frontal cortex and prefrontal cortex, which are involved in the control of behavior, and an increase in input from the striatum, ventral pallidum, globus pallidus, and nucleus accumbens, which are a part of the reward circuitry, and an increase in the amygdala activity for fear.
So, there are two models of neurocircuitry underlying addiction. The first model is called the allostasis model, and the other is called the incentive sensitization model. The allostasis model emphasizes on explaining the drug-seeking behavior and understanding the drug-seeking during withdrawal. It also explains how stress influences drug-seeking behavior. It involves an assumption that the body has a hedonic set point in which above this point you have good mood, and below it you have a negative emotional states. This involves the decrease in the nucleus accumbens dopamine levels and an increase in the CRF, which is the corticotrophin releasing factor. The incentive sensitization focus on the understanding of process and mechanism of cue and drug prime relapse. For example, how people overcame relapse phase of addiction but are still vulnerable to cues that can trigger drug-seeking behavior. This is in contrast with the allostasis model, and this involves in the increase of the nucleus accumbens dopamine levels. So our first study is about the effect of branding or cue on tobacco-seeking behavior. In this study, the subjects are smokers who already passed the relapse phase, and in this experiment, subjects are shown branded packs, plain packs of cigarettes, and the PIT, which is the Pavlovian instrumental transfer, are measured. The results show that the subjects are shown with the branded packs of cigarettes have highest PIT, meaning that these subjects in this study are more likely to seek out tobacco when they see a branded packs. This study follows the allostasis model of addiction, which explains how branded packed cigarettes is a strong cue that can create an urge to seek out tobacco, even though the individual already passed the relapse phase.
The second study is looking at the effectiveness of health warnings on cigarette packs in 4 countries. The health warnings on cigarette packages make you aware of the risks of smoking, and the presentation of the warning labels vary between countries. So the main question is, what is the most effective way to present the warning label so that it can be effective? Here we have the Marlboro cigarette packs in the US, UK, Australia, and Canada. Each have different warning presentations. We can notice that the US warning label is the least prominent, as it takes up the least amount of space on the side of the pack and is a text of a rather small font. The UK warning label is larger, and we can see that in Wave 2, the warning label is modified such that it is the most prominent warning label of the 4 countries. Australia's warning label is larger than the US, yet smaller than both the UK and Canada. The distinguishing factor in Canada's warning label is the picture that is used. Throughout the different time period waves, we see that the only UK made the significant modifications to their warning. The results of this study show that the more prominent health warnings are associated with greater levels of awareness and perceived effectiveness among smokers. Overall, the new UK warning label was more effective because it was the largest and most likely to be read and noticed. This shows us that it's important to periodically revise the label in order to catch the attention of smokers, which is known as the novelty effect. Larger and more noticeable warning labels are more likely to retain their salience. Lastly, although prominent texts are effective, pictures can be even better if it is changed up periodically to catch the smoker off guard. Here is just a closer look at the results. Respondents in the UK both more often noticed and read warnings due to the change in the package style, whereas Canada, Australia, and US remain more platonic in this category. For the respondents that noticed cessation information on cigarette packs in the past 6 months, although Canada had the greatest percentage, the UK showed the greatest overall increase due to the change in their warning label. It's interesting to note, however, that the picture incorporated into the Canada warning label did cause the highest level of respondents to think about the health risks. Overall, the greatest success was with the change in the UK warning label, as it caused the greatest percentage of respondents to stop from having a cigarette and led them to think about quitting. The effectiveness can be enhanced even more if the Canada pictorial warning is enhanced and changed to allow the novelty effect to occur.
This is our third study. This study is conducted to show the effectiveness of tobacco marketing regulations on reducing smoker exposure to advertising and promotions. The left figures show how different countries implement their regulations on tobacco marketing regulations. The X are complete bans, the dash are partial bans, and the zeros are no bans. As you can see, UK, Canada, and Australia has a strict regulation on tobacco marketing on billboards and newspaper and magazines. On the counterpart, the US has little or partial bans. The graph on the right, I just want you to focus on the static show in the red box. This basically compares the percent awareness of tobacco between 2002, in which they started the tobacco regulations, and 2008, which is 6 years later. As you can see, there's a big decrease in tobacco awareness from 2002 to 2008, spanning different countries' study. This essentially showed that the effectiveness of government regulations on reducing tobacco awareness and usage through tackling the tobacco advertisement.
All of these advertisements create biases in our behavior to smoke and drink or to not. There are real-life consequences, as ads can easily escalate usage for many people. One such consequence is Korsakoff syndrome. It is caused by a severe thiamine deficiency and is most commonly present in alcoholics due to alcohol misuse. It is characterized by confusion, loss of recent memory, and confabulation. The primary structure that is affected are the mammillary bodies, which play a role in memory. The usual route of treatment is to take thiamine supplements and to stop drinking. This is just one consequence of how advertising can lead to the misuse of alcohol and a decrease in the perception of danger. Many of us have heard that the DARE program and have personally gone through it during our early years of schooling. The educational program is implemented in grade school to prevent the usage of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and violent behavior. But how effective really is the program? Studies show it is not effective and in many cases actually increases usage of tobacco and alcohol. Why is this the case? Although the program is meant to prevent the usage of drugs and alcohol, the program is essentially advertising the drugs and alcohol to young kids. The program is teaching kids about the effects of various drugs and their effects make the drug appealing to them. So in this way, it is essentially advertising of drugs and alcohol. So what are the main takeaway points and what can we learn from these biases? From this studies, we can see that there's no concrete correlation between alcohol advertising and consumption, and that branded packs are a more effective means of advertising. From the second study, we learned that warning labels are not as ineffective as many may think, and that it's just important to choose the warning label designed strategically. Lastly, the tobacco regulation effectively decreases the awareness. So, overall, to combat these biases, it is important to be aware of the bias. Thank you.